大家好，我是李晓婷 and I'm going to explain about the upper respiratory tract. This is the table of contents. First one is there are nasal cavity and then next paranasal sinuses, pharynx and larynx. So the first one is nasal cavity. The upper respiratory tract begins with the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity is divided into left and right sides by the nasal septum. The nasal cavity is above the palate and surrounded by the paranasal sinuses. So this is the respiratory epithelium, and it is a pseudo-stratified ciliated columnar epithelium. They have numerous goblet cells, and then they have prominent basement membrane, and they also have the lamina propria. The nasal conchae. The nasal conchae is divided into three parts. There's superior nasal conchae, middle nasal conchae, and the inferior nasal conchae. So the next one is the olfactory regions. The olfactory epithelium, which consists of specialized sensory receptors. These receptors pick up airborne odor molecules and transform them into action potentials that travel via the olfactory nerve to the cerebral cortex, allowing the brain to register them and provide a sense of smell. So this is the olfactory regions. The olfactory regions have the pseudo-stratified ciliated columnar cells. They have the olfactory receptor cells, and then the substentacular cells, and the olfactory epithelium, and the basal cells. The next one, there is the paranasal sinuses. Several bones that form the walls of the nasal cavity contain air-filled spaces called the paranasal sinuses, which are named after their associated bones. The frontal sinus, the sphenoid sinus, the ethmoid sinus, and the maxillary sinus. The paranasal sinuses communicate with the nasal cavity via several openings and thereby also receive the inhaled air and contribute to its humidifying and warming. So, after passing through the nasal cavity and the paranasal sinuses, the inhaled air exits through the conchae into the pharynx. The pharynx is a funnel-shaped muscular tube that contains three parts: the nasopharynx, oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. So this is the pharynx. The pharynx is stratified squamous non-keratinized. So this is the nasopharynx. It is found posterior to the nasal cavity, serves only as an airway, and prevent food from entering the nasal cavity. The next one, there is the oropharynx. Found posterior to the oral cavity, a pathway for both the air and the food incoming from the oral cavity, in line with the stratified squamous epithelium. And this is the oropharynx. The next one is the laryngopharynx. It's the most inferior part of the pharynx. And then the next one, there is larynx. The structures of the larynx is primarily cartilaginous and is held together by a series of ligaments and membranes. So this is the functions of larynx. It is first for speech productions, also called the voice box. Larynx is comprised of two pairs of vocal cords. The next function is air passage. It provides an open airway. And then the last one is the channel for channeling food. When the food is swallowed, the epiglottis prevents food and drinks from entering the airways. So the larynx is pseudo-stratified columnar epithelium, and it has the basement membrane and the goblet cells. Next one is the larynx cartilage. So the larynx cartilage can be divided into two: unpaired cartilage and paired cartilage. So first there is the thyroid cartilage, is form the Adam apples, and then the circoid cartilage. This one is the ring of cartilage encircle the trachea, and the epiglottis. This one, an elastic cartilaginous leaf-shaped flap covering the opening of the larynx. And the paired cartilage, there are the arytenoid cartilage. This one, the corniculate cartilage, and the cuneiform cartilage. Focal cords. The focal folds, or you can call it as two focal folds, attached to the arytenoid cartilage. The vestibular folds, or you can call it as the false focal cords, folds is found above the focal folds. And when breathing, the focal folds open, and when speaking, the focal folds close. So this is when breathing, and this is when speaking. And this is the resources. And thank you for listening.